Good afternoon and welcome to Ask an Expert with Mary Jackson today. We appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to learn a little bit more. Mary is our guest speaker today, and she will be talking about IVRS services and give us a nice overview of that. Mary's role is the Assistant Bureau Chief of Transition at Voc Rehab. So we're very excited. She's a good partner with Ask Resource Center. And so we really appreciate that she's going to share information today. We asked just a couple of things. One, if you have questions, please put them in chat. Either Mari or I will have those at the end for Mary to help talk about. Also, Mary mentioned that she will share her contact information. So if it's a deep dive about something specific, you can reach out to her. Of course, you can always start also with Ask Resource Center. These are being recorded and they will be put on our YouTube section. And so you can find those. We're getting them done within a week or so. The holiday, it might be a little bit. And the PowerPoint will be with it also. So you'll have access to all of this information so you can use it as a reference moving forward. So Mary, again, thank you for being here this afternoon with Ask an Expert for sharing with families and professionals. And so I'm actually going to turn it over to you to take it from here.
All right, thanks so much, Deb. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Are you seeing my PowerPoint at this point? Perfect.
We are.
All right. Well, like Deb said, I am Mary Jackson, Assistant Bureau Chief of Transition with Iowa Vocational Rehabilitation Services, also known as IVRS or VR, here at a few different ways throughout the state. So just wanted to start off by talking just briefly about WIOA, or the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. And the reason this is so important is this has really created and expanded who IVRS is able to work with and when. So this was signed into law in 2014, and it really helped us define students with disabilities. So students with disabilities is defined as those individuals who might be on an IEP, a 504 plan, or some other disability of some kind, might not be on either of those two, but would fall under the definition of student with a disability as long as they're in a recognized educational program, starting at age 14 through age 21. So if you have a student who's in high school or possibly the post-secondary setting, maybe attending DMAC or a local community college or a regent level institution, those would all fall under the umbrella of a student with a disability as long as they fall in that age range. And they also meet the definition of being in a recognized educational program. Also important from WIOA is our new language that really defines the groups of students that we work with and services that we provide. So we have two different groups, potentially eligible or PE, and IVRS eligible, which I'll explain here in a minute. And then also Pre-ETS, also known as Pre-Employment Transition Services. So again, just wanted to mention this. The legislation's a few years old now, but this has really changed the face of VR in terms of serving our transition-aged youth. So potentially eligible. So historically, pre-WIOA, VR would recruit students or encourage students to apply for services, and they may or may not go on a waiting list and then have some time before services were actually delivered. With WIOA, we're now able to serve a group of students known as potentially eligible. So this is really any student with a disability who, again, is currently on an IEP or covered under the provisions of 504, meaning they could be on a 504 plan, or they're known as having a disability within that educational setting. And this is regardless if they've applied for individualized services with our agency. We also have the second group, which is called IVRS eligible. Those are the students that have actually applied for those individualized services. So they want full service delivery. And they've gone through our in-depth process. So this is where we do a deep dive into the disability to determine what that disabling condition is and how it affects them in terms of employment. Those individuals that are found eligible for those individualized services have the full range of services available. versus a potentially eligible student is going to have what I called earlier, those pre-employment transition services. Those are the services that would be available for a potentially eligible student. I have a flow chart here in a minute that I'm actually going to bring up to kind of differentiate and walk you through the process for a potentially eligible versus an IVRS eligible student. But I wanted to first explain pre-ETS because I'm going to mention this quite a bit. And again, pre-employment transition services. This came from WIOA and really encompasses all of the exploration that a student needs to do in order to land on their long-term employment goal. So this is really meant to expose students with disabilities to the various options. We have some students that maybe don't know what's available out in the community. Maybe their parents work in a certain industry and that's all they know. Maybe we need to explore various options based on accommodations they might need. That's really the essence of pre-ETS, is making an informed decision about your long-term career goal. So pre-ETS is comprised of these 5 different activity areas: job exploration counseling, work-based learning experiences, counseling on opportunities, workplace readiness training, and self-advocacy instruction. So job exploration counseling. This is really taking a look at what does the labor market information show? What are the different jobs that are even out there? Again, maybe we have students that want to further explore welding careers. Maybe we have individuals that are interested in going into the medical field, looking at nursing or become a certified nurse's aide. That would all fall under the umbrella of job exploration counseling. Work-based learning experiences. That's going to be those hands-on activities where we're directly connecting students with those businesses to learn, whether it's through a job shadow, whether it's through a work-based learning experience in terms of like an after-school summer position, whether it's a worksite tour where we're actually going out and connecting that business and that student together so they can get their questions answered, they can learn hands-on. Counseling on opportunities. This is where we take a look at what opportunities are available at the post-secondary level. So it's really taking a look at, is a 2 or 4 year college degree necessary to go into this field? Is there hands-on training opportunities, such as an apprenticeship or an on-the-job training experience that might be beneficial for that student? But it's exploring what are all those opportunities that are available to help get that student to whatever that end goal is going to be. Workplace readiness training. This is where we're taking a look at the hard and soft skills. So we have some students that maybe are going to get their first job and don't understand when it's appropriate to use a cell phone on the job. Maybe it's somebody that doesn't understand that you have to clock in and out of work, depending on the type of position that you have, how to interact appropriately with your peers on the job. This would all fall under workplace readiness training. Self-advocacy instruction. This is taking a look at what your rights and responsibilities are as an individual with a disability. So we have many students that maybe need to understand, if I'm going to the post-secondary setting, maybe there's accommodations I need to ask for there. Maybe if you're going into an employment situation, knowing what accommodations they need to ask for and then how to request those accommodations at that site. All of that is the different and various activities that we're providing to students with disabilities across the state. So with that being said, I am now going to bring up another flow chart, because sometimes I think it's easier to kind of understand this stuff when you have a visual. So are you guys seeing the flow chart? I can't see
Yes,
any.
we are.
Perfect. Thank you. So those activities that I just explained are available to both potentially eligible and IVRS eligible students. But this
Mary,
flow
could
chart.
you make it just a little bit bigger?
Sure.
Thank you.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, great. So this flow chart is going to walk you through who receives the various services. So kind of going back to the previous slide where I talked about potentially eligible versus an IVRS eligible student. And this is going to walk you through the various services that the IVRS eligible student can also receive. So we talked about Pre-ETS, and that is available whether you're a potentially eligible student or an IVRS eligible student. The green line up here, if you follow the arrows for potentially eligible, this could be a student that, again, is on an IEP 504 plan or has a disability of some kind and is known as having a disability within the school district that's interested in participating in those Pre-ETS that I just described. So those Pre-ETS are provided in groups or individually. And so sometimes we have students and families and teachers trying to connect other students to those activities. In order to be considered potentially eligible then, and wanting to participate in those activities, that's when we have a Pre-ETS agreement completed. And so that is a form. When I go back to my PowerPoint, I have it linked in there. And I know Deb said she will send that out to everyone. So you guys will have access to that link. But that agreement can be completed by the family, by the student, by the teacher, really anyone that wants to get the students connected in those activities I just described. It's not an application for full service delivery. So if a student is wanting additional services outside of those Pre-ETS that I just described, that is when an application for full service delivery is completed. That's also linked in the PowerPoint, and I'll show you that here after I'm done with this. So both the Pre-ETS agreement or the application are both linked depending on where those touch points are into our system. But let's say a student gets connected, they fill out that agreement. We do collect what we call PE documentation or potentially eligible documentation. And again, that would be a copy of the IEP, a copy of the 504 plan. It could be an email from the school trying to get the student connected for those Pre-ETS activities. That would all count as that potentially eligible documentation. Once we have that agreement and the documentation in place, those Pre-ETS that I just described, that student has access to. So they are able to participate in those activities as long as they meet that definition of student with a disability. So let's say your student is connected as potentially eligible and they're not going on to any type of post-secondary training, then their Pre-ETS would end at high school graduation. If they do end up going on to the post-secondary training, those Pre-ETS could continue on and those set of services could be provided in the post-secondary setting. Now, let's say at any point in time, we realize there's additional needs, that maybe that student needs other direct VR services to be successful with employment. So this could include things such as job coaching, supported employment services. Maybe we have assistive technology needs, that we've had some students that needed modified vehicles or other additional services to be successful with employment. Those are going to be the individuals that we have apply for full service delivery to become an IVRS eligible student. And you can see these arrows at any point in time. You could start by applying for services, or maybe you're participating in Pre-ETS. And through conversations and observations of our staff, it's identified that there are additional needs for this student. So it could be at that point in time where we get them connected for applying for services. But once a student applies for those individualized services, we do have 60 days to determine eligibility. So this again is where we do now the deep dive. So the PE student, we just get a copy of the IEP 504 plan or an email from the school indicating that the student has a disability of some kind. We don't do a deep dive into that. For an IVRS eligible student, this is when we do the deep dive. We take a look at and we send for medical information. We have to verify that there's a diagnosis of some kind. We talk with teachers, we talk with families to find out how that disability impacts them in terms of employment, because all of this will factor into the services that they're going to need to be successful. So our staff have that 60 days. We do have waiting list categories currently. However, there's no wait time at the moment. So as people are determined eligible, they're coming off the waiting list immediately and services are able to be provided. That's not always the case. So there could potentially be a wait time of some time in the future, but at this point, we don't anticipate that in the near future. The good thing about these pre-ETS activities, though, all throughout this process, the students are still able to participate in pre-ETS. So even if we have a student applying for services, we want to get them connected and participating in pre-ETS right off the bat, so that if there was a wait time of some kind, they could continue to receive those pre-ETS activities even while on the waiting list, still exploring those career options. The in-depth full service delivery would not be available until they come off of that waiting list at that point. Once they're determined eligible, we have 90 days to develop an employment plan with a student. So let's say that the student is unsure what they want to do. We might write some additional assessments into their plan to help them narrow down that goal while also continuing in those pre-ETS activities that we just described. But let's say the student does have an idea. We might be writing out their plan then to identify what that employment goal is, and then all the services available through VR that will help them reach that goal. That could include post-secondary training. We have services available to assist with costs and getting students connected for the training program that would be needed. Again, assistive technology, job placement services, maybe they're not going on to post-secondary training, but maybe need some additional services. We would provide whatever service was needed to help them get to their employment goal successfully. And that's where this next feature or this next, bubble comes into play. This could include pre-ETS. So maybe we're going to continue on having students participate in this as long as they meet that definition of student with a disability. But the other services that are needed to help them successfully transition would also be folded in. If we have a student that doesn't need these additional services, they may remain as potentially eligible with our agency until either they reach graduation or they're no longer in need of that or meet that definition of student with a disability. And that's fine. But if we have that student that's going to need additional services, those are the ones that we would have apply for our full service delivery to become the IVRS eligible student. And with an IVRS eligible student, we will work with them until all of those services are provided and they're on their long-term employment goal for at least 90 days before we close them out of our services. So for some students, that could be shortly after graduation. If they know what they want to do, there's no additional post-secondary training. It could be if they're successfully placed and moving forward with that goal, great. For others, it could be a few years of us still continuing to work with them. They may have those post-secondary training needs. They could need supported employment services that need to provide some additional services to help them be successful before we even get them placed on that long-term employment goal. In either case, though, this information should be done in collaboration with the school district. And at this point, and I will share this flow chart with you guys. So I will send this to Deb so that you guys will have this as well. But I'm actually going to go back. Sorry, I'm jumping around a little bit.
Mary, could you just stick it in chat so they could have it in real time? Do you mind putting it in there, and then I will also share it out?
The flow chart?
Yeah.
I don't know if I know how to do that. It's not linked anywhere. It's a document I have.
Okay, no problem. What I'll do is I'll send it to our person that takes care of all this, and it'll be with the recording. So I'll make sure.
Perfect.
Flow chart and also your PowerPoint is included.
Okay, thanks, Deb. So this is the slide. I'm not going to go over this again since we just talked about this, but this is for that potentially eligible. It's the Pre-ETS agreement. I just wanted you guys to be aware it is linked in here. That actually will take you to the agreement itself in case you're interested in viewing that on our website and filling that out. It's just a reminder, it's not an application for services. This is just for those Pre-ETS activities that I described. And here is the application for services. So that is also linked right on the PowerPoint and just kind of gives a high level overview of what I just described, but also just wanted you to be aware that that is linked in here. But maybe you guys are wondering at this point, well, how do I know what Pre-ETS activities or what service delivery looks like in the school district where my child attends? So we have developed something called a local school plan. And this is something that we create with every public school district across the state and private accredited school district across the state. Our goal is 100% of our public school districts has a local school plan. Our goal really is to get 100% of our private accredited institutions as well, but I know we're not at that goal yet. But we are continuing discussions with school districts each year to move in that direction. These plans are developed by local teams, and we have training available for those teams. We do surveys with the teams to find out how service delivery is going. We have a template for the plan, and these plans are due by November 1st each school year. So this is a living document that gets updated each year, and teams continuously have conversations on what this service delivery looks like. So our local school plans are not posted anywhere because I think we have about 405 currently plans across the state. But if you ever were wondering, well, what does my plan say for my local district? How are pre-ETS or what pre-ETS are being provided in my district for my child? That would be a question you could definitely pose to your IVRS counselor who's assigned to your district. You can ask the school as well. We have representatives from the school district. We have representatives from the AEA. Obviously, the IVRS counselor or staff that's assigned to that building. We also have lots of different contracted programs or community partners that are part of these teams. On our website, we actually have a section, and I have it linked at the end, our website information. But we have it linked where you can take a look at the template for the local school plan. It has a webinar on there and additional resources in case you guys are interested in learning more about the local school plan. But this is really the way to differentiate who is delivering what in terms of pre-ETS within your district. So if you're familiar with IDEA requirements, and that's really the legislation that the school district is following versus WIOA, which is what we're following, you'll know there's a lot of overlap there between what I just described with those pre-ETS or the pre-employment transition services and the various services provided if your student is under like an IEP, for example. In those cases, this local school plan should outline what the school district currently provides in each of those areas. It will outline what IVRS provides in each of those areas. It will also outline if we have any contracted programs. So we currently have numerous contracted programs across the state that assist us with delivering these pre-ETS activities. And if you're not sure if your district has a contracted program, your local school plan would tell you that. There would be a column on there indicating what that program is, and then the various activities that they're providing within pre-ETS as well. If we have any community partners at the table or additional providers, that they would also have a column on the plan and would indicate if they're providing any services within that area. For example, I know that there is a school district in Iowa that partners with a community provider for their work-based learning program. So that would be indicated on their local school plan. The plan itself, we're working towards ways that we can make them accessible to the public. It's just difficult because there's so many plans currently on how to make that so it's not overwhelming for people to search. So in the meantime, and we're always open to suggestions on that, but in the meantime, we will provide this to anyone that contacts us. So anyone in the district, a community partner, a parent, a student, a teacher, anyone who's not on this team but wants a copy of the plan can be provided a copy of the plan at any point in time. And there is where I linked our website. Again, that will have a section on it for the local school plan, but it also has a high school contact list on our website as well. So if you're sitting here listening to me talk today and wondering, well, who is my IVRS counselor or staff assigned to my school district? It is linked right on our website. It's called our high school contact list. It will identify who our staff are. It will have their email address, their phone number, their contact information, so that you could reach out to that counselor to either request a copy of that plan or reach out to try and get your student connected to services. And I think there may have been questions in chat, Deb, but I
There
don't have it.
were, Mary. So let's take a look at.
Sure.
Is, please talk more. Well, let's. Oh, I see. Mari put some links into the chat, so folks, make sure you grab those. It says, please talk more about IPE. It is very generic, does not state how much time should be spent on each goal or exactly it is implemented. How do I push for more time, faster pace in implementing those services?
Great question. So on our plan, so our IPE, also known as our individualized plan for employment, it lists out there not only the service that's needed, but the time frame it should be delivered by, and then who would be directly providing that service. So on that plan, that's reviewed annually. So we do an annual comprehensive review where the team should come together and talk about how services are going. So what I would encourage you to do is have a conversation with your IVRS counselor staff assigned to your student to have a conversation on, does that time frame match up with what not only your expectations are, but how the school district is delivering services as well. So for example, we've had some students that maybe aren't ready for a paid work-based learning experience yet out in the community and are going to be participating in maybe an unpaid work experience through the school district first to build their skills. We would want to make sure our time frame matches up for when that student's going to be ready for that next step in service delivery. So that plan itself should outline that time frame. And if you are having questions or concerns with what that time frame that's been identified, that would be something, of course, to discuss at the annual comprehensive review or at any point in time. You could reach out to your VR counselor and that time frame could be modified. We do what's called amendments to our employment plans that could be done all throughout the school year as well, and during the summer, all throughout the year, I should say, because we are a year-round service.
Great. What is the best way for families to be involved with their students' voc rehab services?
Sure, great question. Parent engagement is huge. We know for our students to be successful, we have to have parents engaged in our process all throughout the way. The information that parents have for us, it's a different perspective or a different angle than what we can get sometimes from the school district. You obviously know your child best, and so getting that information is vital. So even if there's a meeting and you're not able to attend in person, which we know people are busy, have work that they have to attend, even connecting via Zoom, by phone, even email after the fact, that information is vital and needs to be included in that plan that we're developing. We also encourage parent nights. We have Susie Paulson, who does a parent night presentation that I believe occurs on Tuesdays. I have that information that I can send as well to Deb to send out to everyone. But if you have specific questions about like guardianship or some of the other dynamics as well, getting connected and asking those questions is really vital. We can't move forward with a lot of our services without parent participation and engagement. If a student is under the age of 18, the parent has to sign off on all of our forms. If a student is 18 or above and has a legal guardian, they also have to sign off on all of our forms. So sometimes our biggest barrier to getting a student connected would be getting the parent to agree for the student to participate in services, even as a potentially eligible student. That Pre-ETS agreement would require the parent to sign off on that. I think keeping informed throughout the process is essential. And so our staff should definitely be reaching out and following up with you guys to make sure that you're understanding all the steps throughout the process as well. Because what we don't want to have happen is somebody remains as potentially eligible who needs that full service delivery and isn't going to get that unless they actually apply for services. So that open communication and that parent engagement and that collaboration is a huge piece of the puzzle for the success of our students.
Great, thanks, Mary. And so spot on. I know they don't think our parents need to be involved at that age, the kids, and it's like, no, you need to know and still be that advocate. So spot on. All right, do we see any other questions? Yes. Oh, thank you, Mari. I had asked her to put in that next week we're going to be talking with folks about work incentive planning and assistance. It's called WIPA, W-I-P-A. I see Mary saying yes. So please go to our website and sign up, and they discuss transition strategies and work incentives. And so please consider joining us on that Monday at noon. Again, you can ask questions. Mary, any nod to that webinar? How important is that to get that background?
Oh, benefits planning is huge. Sometimes people don't understand the incentives and the benefit of working in the community. And I know there's a lot of misunderstanding around that. And so benefits planning just for the success of the student themselves for their future, it's such an essential piece of the puzzle.
Well, thank you again, Mary. Great information. Of course, reach out to Mary if you have specific things that you want to touch base with her on. This recording will be taken care of so that we can get it on our YouTube site so that you will have that to access for forever. And so again, thank you for joining us about Ask an Expert so that you are a little bit wiser and smarter about voc rehab and the great information that she shared with us. And Mary, thank you again. This was fantastic information. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for having me.